Hello, everyone, and welcome to Morning Market Movers, where we look at hotspots in the markets for today and do some live analysis for day trading. It is Thursday, February 24th. I am Todd Rich with Nadex. With me, Brian Caprice from Keep Trading Simple. And of course, today it's war. We knew that this was coming. It was broadcast, and it's here. So obviously, that is what is driving everything. Now, it's difficult to get into the details of everything that's gone on because it's such a fluid situation and it's going to constantly change. We're going to be getting reports. I'm keeping my eyes peeled to my Reuters feed, my AP feed, the Wall Street Journal, and taking in the news instead of listening to the talking heads on TV. I'm just going to kind of take it in as it comes and read it as it comes in. Now, what are we seeing in the markets? First off, oil absolutely exploded, hits $100 a barrel. So we are going to be talking about oil, and we'll be taking a look at what you could potentially be doing there. Equities all getting hammered. We've been in a down streak, but now we are officially in bear territory on the Nasdaq, down 20% from highs. Correction territory every place else, but it's not pretty in the equity space. Now we are seeing what I'll call flight to safety. We're seeing the U.S. dollar and the yen both spike. So we're seeing people put money into those currencies where they feel it's a bit safer. And we're seeing silver and gold even get a bump. And there's a little bit of a story there on the gold piece as well. So we've got everything moving around. Oil up, equities down, silver, gold, dollar, yen, all up. This isn't pretty, but we've known it's been coming, and it's going to be a news and headline-driven market. So as things move around, if you're trading these markets, and there is lots of volatility, which creates opportunity, Nadex products with their absolutely defined risk before you even get into the trade is one way to do this, so that you can get in there and at least have some protections on, because we really don't know what's going to happen next. Before we jump into it, I do need to share this disclaimer that trading involves risk and may not be appropriate for everyone, that any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk. And this is an educational session. Please do not construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We are doing this for your education purposes. I'll just quickly bring up, look at the chart of oil. It's just all, and it did break 100, and it's hovering now in the 99 plus area. Yeah, volatility across the market. So Brian, let me flip it over to you. We can run through a couple of the headlines and then let's get into the charts.
Yeah, I'm thankful this morning for noise canceling headphones and software. The Kip is on me again, guys, and he's being quite loud. So if you haven't heard him,
Yeah,
NVIDIA
we can't hear
broadcast.
him.
Yeah, NVIDIA broadcast is taking background noise out. I'm like, it's not really background. He's like 4 inches from the mic, but he is quite animated this morning. So yeah, so there's obviously been some major headlines. I don't think any can be really expected. I would say right now that most of this is all fake breakouts. Obviously, oil is the one that we expected that if it happened, we kind of knew that it was going to go up probably to 100, and it did. That was kind of the first piece of the puzzle that we talked about yesterday. Crude oil inventories come out today. There's supposed to be a slight downdraw, but it's not really going to necessarily matter. What they're looking for now is the headline for the Ukrainian. I'm sorry, not the Ukrainian, the Iranian oil to come online, and we should see oil collapse back down again, as well as the biggest thing that Biden thus far has said is that he doesn't want people to be paying higher prices at the pump, which is counterproductive for what he's already done policy wise. So he's already mentioned it. We're waiting for that headline and the Iranian headline. So I'd be looking more for short opportunities at this point. Again, the oil inventory report today, it'll matter. And again, the API number came in quite high. You can see that the API number came in high, but their forecast was there was supposed to be a surplus. Remember, the API is the industry-specific reports. Of course, the industry is like, no, we got to stabilize prices. We got so much extra oil right now, right? So I don't know that this is, one of those days where it's going to come in as predicted. And again, it can definitely be off.
I
So we'll
wouldn't
see
be
what that looks
surprised.
like today.
Yeah,
What?
yeah, I
Go ahead.
wouldn't be surprised. We'll see what those numbers are, although it doesn't really matter in the backdrop of everything else going on. But I wouldn't be surprised to see surplus. I wouldn't be surprised if the U.S. itself hasn't been, right. They had to put oil back in the reserves that we released,
Yeah, remember we
uh,
released it from the reserve, which
and start
was a
stock.
temporary halt, and it did nothing. And now
And,
we're back in the same situation. So
well, I mean, and they probably, for all we know, they've been stockpiling it, knowing that this is coming too,
probably,
so
yeah.
they
I mean,
can.
that's not a
Right,
number that it's called the Strategic Oil Reserve for a reason. We kind
right.
of don't hear how that gets funded,
Right.
and
Or
what
or
production is
what's in
online.
there, right? What's in there? How
Right,
much is in there? So
right.
I'm
Yeah,
probably pretty
yeah.
confident they've.
And remember, part of that too is we'll never see it. It's supposed to be, there are things in quote wartime that they're allowed to do without announcing to the public.
Yeah,
I believe that this technically qualifies as that. So, yeah, we'll see what the number looks like. Obviously, this spike. We're waiting for two news headlines. I mean, what else could happen now that we go to war? Okay, well, we're not at war, but there is a war currently going on. So, could it go even higher? Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. We're waiting for the G7 headlines. The G7 is meeting right now, and they're talking about putting the most severe sanctions on there. Sanctions only work if the other person is actually hurt by it. And right now, the or the opponents, I guess you got to make sure you say the right one. The anti kind of Putin people out there, they're saying, listen, the Russian people need to understand that because of this aggression, the future of Russia is at stake because we're going to be denied technology and Russia will fall farther behind. So I mean, the rhetoric is out there. Belarus doesn't have any sanctions yet. I'm assuming we'll see Belarus. They've joined forces with Russia as well. There's
yep.
actually an opposition candidate that has already said, "Hey, listen, I'm setting up a new Belarusian government in Paris right now. Standing up for the independence and national interest of my country." Again, kind of the Belarus leader. In a democratic election, her husband got arrested right before the election, and she ran for him. A lot of fraud and stuff like that went over there. So I would expect something to happen to Belarus as well. But so the terminology, people are saying some of the right things out there, but as far as what we can do with oil, I think looking for short opportunities is going to be where it is. They're obviously, the president has mentioned it, and this kind of goes back to kind of the same thing. If you guys remember when Obama and when he took office in that February, he's like, the stock market's a great place to be, and Warren Buffett was like, hey, it's a great place to be in the stock market, and they were calling it from the bottom. It's kind of one of those things. Biden has already mentioned that this is a priority for him, that he realizes that he has to get pump prices down. So I think, again, finding a good spot in crude oil. Can it go much higher? I don't know what else could happen really worse, right? I mean, if war breaks out in the Middle East, maybe, but besides that, everybody's chomping at the bit that like, hey, we got oil, we got oil, we got oil, buy our oil. So, the goal is if you're trying to hurt Russia, you got to hurt them with oil. The sanctions, this is the headline we've seen from the sanctions thus far. China has now basically agreed that they're going to take all Russian wheat imports. So, the two big Russia, I guess, produces the most wheat of any nation. I didn't realize that until earlier today, but this is a very, very big deal for them. And the fact that China has tons of people, right? They're like, hey, we'll take all the Russian wheat imports. That's fine. We'll do it. They're getting support already. So our sanctions only work if everybody does it. Their closest neighbor that's supporting them right now is like, hey, we'll take it over. We'll soften the blow of that. So
Right.
that's not necessarily the best thing. And again, we'll see what happens with China. Maybe if they do really tough sanctions, they'll say, if you support Russia, aka China, then yeah, you'll receive the same one. So who knows? We'll see. Got to look for the headlines. As far as the overall currency market, obviously a lot of play there. But when I said there's a lot of fake outs, it definitely is. There's some dollar strength out there. I wouldn't say it's glowing dollar strength, but compared to some nations, and again, it's all based off exposure right now. Euro dollar, pound dollar, both down over 200. Obviously, way over a daily ATR. There's war right on their doorstep, so it makes sense. Gold, you mentioned, is up. Gold is an interesting story and an absolute fake out right now. People are going to gold for safety, but the Aussie dollar is down 130 pips, double its ATR right now, showing you that
Yeah.
the proxy is not really working right now. And there's been some articles out, if you guys, I don't have time to go over them today, right now, but look for
Russian
them.
gold.
Gold is kind of a weird thing because Russia has a very big supply of gold. So they said, hey, listen, that will be locked out of the market. So again, that the rising prices right now to kind of hurt them. Gold is not necessarily, if you're not already in gold, it's probably not the greatest place to be. And again, it's proxy showing you that it's fake. When I also mentioned fake, you can also look at the dollar Swiss. Now, dollar Swiss is a hard one because the dollar is involved with it. But looking at the Swiss yen, you're seeing the Swiss yen is down. Okay. The Swiss is the ultimate flight to safety currency.
For
Again,
war. Yeah.
neutral in every single war. They always have been. They always will be. Small nation. Typically, whenever there's war and people crossing borders, the Swiss is the first thing to gain strength because people want to send to that country because there's no question about it disappearing, right? It is actually down right now, which is not what you normally see in the overall markets. Obviously, the euro and the pound both down versus the dollar. The dollar's more insulated. Dollar CAD is up, right? But what we're seeing with the dollar CAD is we have oil up at $100, which again, the proxies are not necessarily working right now.
They're
So,
totally decoupled, right? The proxy for gold,
right,
proxy for oil,
everything
not
is
working.
decoupled. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm a big believer in this kind of return to the mean. Everything ends up equaling out over time. With these big decouplings, there's a reason why those couples actually exist in the first place. I tend to like to look for those reversals on it, right? Right now, dollar is very, very strong. Could we do something that obviously turns this market on its head? Absolutely, absolutely. With that being said, going right into the indices, indices picture, we see the deterioration yesterday. 2 o'clock, it started to continue, and again, you know, here's where the troops kind of went in late last night, right? This is when we got the official, hey, it's going to happen tonight sometime. The move had already happened. Since the troops went in, the market has kind of stabilized itself a little bit more. And again, this is an example of the market kind of pricing things in. We're down, 2.4% in ES, and we've
Yep.
kind of found the bottom since the Europeans came in. NQ also, most of the move happened yesterday and then started to stabilize last night at about 10 o'clock. Also, the time when we got official notification that they were starting to cross the borders. Since that time, not a whole lot. It's kind of jig back and forth. YM is the same thing. So, the picture is kind of the same across the board, and it's funny. Russell actually came down and tagged a level that we talked about, this 1884. Looking at the price action here, there's obviously going to be a retail trader kind of sentiment to it. Everybody knows we're at war, and like, oh my God, everything is down. We got to start shorting everything. If you think about this, take a step back and again use a quote battlefield kind of technique on this one. Get that bird's eye view of it. Obviously, any type of war is a major kind of continental kind of situation. Retail traders are going to go in there with a gut feeling and say, "Oh my God, it's already down and got to get in. The market's going to disappear today." That is the ideal kind of ripe opportunity for some type of a rally later today. Because if everybody knows that war is horrible, right? This is kind of that pre-positioning before news that we talk about. I mean, you guys have heard the statement, right? Buy the rumor, sell the
Yeah,
news.
it's the other way around. Sell
Right.
the rumor,
Sell the
buy
rumor.
the fact.
Yeah. Now you're seeing the same thing. Yesterday, when we're like, "Oh, war's coming," and went straight down. Now that war's here, we've kind of stabilized, and we've actually put higher lows in, which is kind of one of those things. Like, wait, higher lows? Buyers are starting to establish themselves down below. So, do I think this is the market bottom? Probably not. We probably have a little bit more to go in it, just because again, there's going to be that initial response. War's here. I got a short. Everything's red, and people see red and they want to start selling. But the reality is how much exposure, based off of our economy and everything else. I mean, the biggest problem that we have right now from all this is oil. It's not necessarily, we're not getting a lot of goods and services from Russia. If Russia decides to cut off the United States, they have such a minor part of global GDP. It doesn't actually really affect our daily lives on a day-to-day basis. And this is the big gripe that a lot of people are saying. Why are we even getting involved? They don't have any. It doesn't affect us.
It doesn't affect
all.
the U.S. It affects Europe, so it will ultimately impact us.
Yeah.
But
it does,
you're
yeah.
right.
But
To what we're doing
that's what
in our
everybody's
economy,
saying. Don't get involved. It's not our problem. It is our problem. I mean, we're supposed to be the leader of democracy and the protector of innocence and things
and
like
it does
that.
show up on your doorstep. It's at some point.
It does. It does. Yeah.
Impact you eventually.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And same thing. I mean, you're seeing carryover. There was an article yesterday. The Ukrainians there was an article about a woman in New York City. There's about 150,000 Ukrainians in New York City. She was going to take first aid classes, and if Russia invaded, she was going to go back home to volunteer as a nurse to help her country. And he said these are big. I mean, it's just people are kind of lining up to help support
everything.
Ukraine. So
it changes. Yeah, my housekeeper's Ukrainian. Her sister actually came over here and staying in the States.
Yeah.
Her parents are too sick to fly. It does impact everything. The Ukrainian civilians are already fleeing.
Yep.
And I mean, we've seen this. So, and I'm just going to give another analogy. People who complain that all these people are coming up through Central America and through Mexico and ending up at the U.S. border. Well, that's because we didn't do anything in Venezuela, and they fled. And those people are going to go.
I mean, Venezuela has oil too.
Yeah, but if the dam breaks, the water's going to flow. If we don't do anything in Venezuela, which we didn't, the dam broke, and those people ended up at our doorstep, and it's going to happen. And the same thing's
Yeah.
going to happen in Europe. People are
Yep.
going to flee Ukraine, and it's a big, big area. They're going to go somewhere. It's going to impact all
Yeah.
of the European. I mean, so
Yep.
it
There'll
does,
be
and
spillover.
eventually
Yeah.
that does impact the United States. And there
Yeah.
is another saying, by the way, and this goes to the stock market one, and just you got to keep, the old saying, when there's blood in the streets, buy property.
Yeah.
That's how
Yeah.
people have become
Yep.
multi-trillionaires.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, this is the oil chart, guys. I just wanted to kind of make sure we touch on this because it's already after
um,
9. This is
yeah,
this is oil. If you look at most of the run up in oil, it really started really kind of what late last night, and then the overnight session is when it took off. Here's the European session open. Let me mark this off our 3 o'clock window. Right here. Okay. A lot of the move had already happened from the close yesterday, and we've had a little bit more. I mean, it went up at about another $2. But then the same thing I talked about the indices. At this point, you can see that now there was a low here and a low here. We have lower lows and lower highs, in the same position. So, I
is it
mean, looking at
rolling?
this, you could say, hey, listen, there's a turning point here. Here was a down pull, right? This was a higher low, but then this is a lower high, and this is a lower low. And this you can arguably say that, well, it's kind of about the same. It is. The question is, what's next here? And again, there will be a U.S. trader sentiment in this whole thing. But what happens this morning if Biden says, based off of the unprecedented $5 move in the overnight from where we were yesterday, this is what I'm doing. I'm increasing supply or whatever.
Right.
That's a headline that leads us to the downside. So, this is a unique opportunity. See, what we could find in here. There may be some opportunity to take things, south. And again, if you're worried about the kind of the risk back and forth, this is where you go into kind of the call spreads. I know people don't like the call spreads, but call spreads have that protection where if for some reason we do whip up to 102 before that announcement comes out, guess what? It doesn't matter. You're totally fine. If it was a knockout, you're going to get stopped. If it's a binary, you're not going to get stopped. But it may be an opportunity to take and take this to the downside. Now, today is the fresh day where people did go over the border. We may not get the announcement because it's going to be about sanctions today. Maybe this is one of those ones where it's kind of like, all right, well, listen, it's Thursday now, Friday. I would absolutely be looking for some way to get short oil going into this weekend, or open when contracts open on Sunday. The reason why is are they going to get a plan out to suddenly increase oil production over the next 24 hours before the market closes for the weekend?
No,
probably not. But will they have something probably by early next week to lower the fears of the U.S.?
Yeah, probably.
Probably. So again, you got to kind of think smart. Try to think a little bit ahead. I don't have a crystal ball, but Biden's already made one comment. We already know that Iran, we're waiting to hear their deal at any time. Seeing a $5 spike up, I mean, this is all parabolic move. And it was over, I mean, at one point we were at 150 cents. Even with this kind of little pullback right now, we're already 60 cents down. And it did pulled back, $2.50 already. And that was just an hour ago. So there's a lot of movement in this one. The premiums are going to be high, obviously, because they're options. But, natural gas and, again, natural gas is also up 6.4%. But are they at their peaks? Natural gas kind of is. But, again, that kind of makes a little bit more sense because they are definitely much more a European natural gas thing. Oil's already starting to turn and roll. So, again, I would look today to play more of the contrarian to things. Obviously, there's going to be that initial gut reaction. But definitely, without a doubt, be looking at 10:30, our normal reversal time today. Today is the ultimate trap day, right? Could it just continuing to go all the way down? It could, right? But looking at some of these Globex numbers, something like this with the YM, people are going to look at this and say, wait a second, here you go. There's my Globex low. If it goes below 32,170, we're getting short. This is kind of how you set up great traps inside of the market. So, again, I would kind of see what that initial push, that initial open looks like. I'm assuming down. And then at 10:30, if we get some basing and we get a little confirmation, there could be some amazing reversals today. So
there's
because everybody knows it's bad.
And again, we're seeing this across the board. I mean, just these monster moves with the dollar strength, the yen strength.
Yep. And they all look the same.
Interesting that we're not seeing the Swiss franc go along with it. Which you're right, it is the ultimate. That would be the place people go to during war. You're seeing that popping gold and silver. We're seeing oil absolutely take off. We're seeing equities getting absolutely hammered. Everyone's going to digest this news. It's to me, it's like we've all seen this coming. It's like watching a train wreck happen slowly, and it is and it's fine. It's here now. Right now, it's just happened, and we're just continuing on this trajectory. The
Mhm.
question is do all these moves actually make sense, and is
Yeah.
there opportunity out there for trading and for trading opportunity?
Yeah,
Again, everything is
because
going to
remember,
be
it's fear and
headline-driven
greed.
news.
There's a ton of that out there right now. There's a ton
Yep,
of fear, and that's
there
the
is a ton of fear, and
that's the main driving force with the markets right now. So, and
so
then greed will kick in, and everybody will, that's you know, that's
yep.
it happens. We'll live to trade another day. So,
So it's going to make for some interesting trading days today, tomorrow, and then certainly into next week as more headlines come across the board. With
yeah,
that, for today at least, any questions for Nadex, please email us customerservice@nadex.com. If you've got some questions or concerns, feel free to email Brian, support at keeptradingsimple.com, even if it's over the weekend. Particularly, we're here to help. My email is up there as well, todd.rich@ig.com. You got questions, we'll do what we can. We can answer what we can. Um, but it is going to be some interesting volatile times. With that, again, I think we've kind of gone through. There's really the charts are all outside of their average true ranges. I mean, everything is making very significant moves. We'll see what the retail trader has to say in 25 minutes when they come into the markets. Uh, as Brian said, again, that's kind of an interesting one. Take a look around those 1030 retracement levels or reversal levels. And we will be back tomorrow morning. Until then, trade safely and good luck in the markets. We'll catch you tomorrow. Oh, and by the way, if you like what we're doing, please drop those likes in on YouTube. We do, or on Facebook or wherever you're watching us. We do appreciate that. Thanks, everyone. We'll catch you tomorrow.